Hello and welcome to the Mighty Oaks Show. Good to have you with us today. My name is Jeremy Stolniker. I'm the Executive Director of the Mighty Oaks Foundation here with Branden Kunath, who is the National Programs Director of the Mighty Oaks Foundation, and excited to come to you today as we come into a long weekend where as a nation we celebrate what we call Veterans Day. What a special day for us, and we want to talk about that a little bit. Really, in our organization, we spend every day talking about veterans and veterans issues and veterans families issues and all that goes along with that. So we want to talk about Veterans Day today and really talk about how important it is and how special it is. But before we get there, I want to talk to you briefly about something we are doing as an organization that we want to invite you to participate in. I think that anyone who watches this show and anyone who's really aware of the media would understand that in a lot of ways, freedom and patriotism and identifying with the American values that we have long held as a country, really in a lot of circles is viewed as a negative thing, which is insane to me. I don't understand how it's a negative thing to identify with your country, but in a lot of ways it is. And we've seen attacks on so many aspects of America and what it is to be an American. And one of those areas that, again, blows my mind is the Pledge of Allegiance. We talk about the Pledge of Allegiance and our pledge to our nation, that one nation under God, and aligning ourselves to those values. And we're thankful for those who've come before us. We're going to talk about that a little bit today, and we're thankful even to be able to align to them by saying the pledge. And I am fully on board with saying the pledge and having our children say the pledge and having our fellow Americans do that. So we're asking you to do something very simple. That was a really long explanation, but asking you to do something very simple. As we come into this Veterans Day weekend, we are starting what we call the Pledge campaign. It's really, really simple. Go on to social media and record yourself. You can do it on your phone. If you have the new iPhone, it's going to look really, really good because you have those 3 cameras. So clearly, it's going to look better than every other phone out there. But record yourself on whatever device you have, saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Post that to social media. As you come to the end of that pledge, you challenge someone to say it and post it as well. We've seen all of these kind of campaigns on social media. But this is the Pledge campaign, and our goal really as an organization is just to raise awareness of not only the work of Mighty Oaks, but so many folks as we come into Veterans Day who have gone before us. And if you'd like more information on that, please go to our website, mightyoaksprograms.org, mightyoaksprograms.org /pledge, mightyoaksprograms.org /pledge, and you can find out more information about that. Branden doesn't know yet, but I called him out on my video, and so he's going to now have to say the pledge on video.
So I know now.
Now you know.
Yes.
And reach out to some of your friends. So we're all going to participate in this. But it's a great way just to very simply say, I'm standing with America, really, and the values that we hold dear, and thankful for the opportunity to do that. Again, if you're watching, thank you for watching. If you're listening, go over to YouTube when you get a chance. You can watch this full episode and so many other episodes on YouTube. The Mighty Oaks Show, look for that on YouTube. Subscribe, hit the notification bell. That will let you know when new episodes come online. I think that's it.
That was a lot.
That was a lot. That was a lot. But I think really well done.
You could have just said that, at our sessions, we say the Pledge of Allegiance every morning.
We do say the Pledge of Allegiance every morning at our sessions.
Yeah, that's how we start our day. Every time at our session, we start with Pledge of Allegiance, and we say our morning prayer, and then we do what most guys usually don't do, is they go eat breakfast and start the day. Yeah, a
lot of guys don't eat breakfast.
Yeah.
They just wander off.
Yeah.
But they do drink coffee.
Or coffee is their breakfast.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we do say the pledge. It's neat to get a lot of men or women, depending on the program, who have lived their lives in large part in service to their country on a hilltop in the middle of really nowhere. It's a beautiful ranch, but it's in the middle of nowhere. Mm-hmm. Just taking a minute to pledge allegiance once again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At all of our locations. I mean, Ohio, they made sure they put a specific flagpole in the area. So, yeah, it's a big part of how we start our day, and brings back the importance of it.
In Texas, we say the pledge and then we pray for rain.
Yes, that's
what you do in Texas.
Yeah. Or you do the dishes and eat last. So there's there's good things to that.
There's good things to it too. But saying the pledge, and what a simple way for you to show your support, not only for veterans this Veterans Day weekend, but for our country. And thankful for the opportunity to come and just spend a few minutes talking to you. This is not going to be one of our longer episodes, but as we come into these days, I think it's important for us to pause and remember why we celebrate. Remember something like Veterans Day. Mm-hmm. Both of us have served, and I think in large part, the reason we began the process of service, whenever that decision was made, was because of those who've gone before us. Mm-hmm. Talk for a minute. Your dad served for a long time. You were mm-hmm. raised in a military family. Maybe talk about that for a minute. Maybe the impact that observing that service in your own family had on you making the decision to, follow in your dad's footsteps to a large extent. Although you chose the Marine Corps,
of course, yeah.
Which I appreciate.
Yes.
Sometimes the sons do make better decisions than the fathers.
Yeah. But. And I had Marine and Army on both sides of the family. So, when at that time Sergeant Brown gave me the call. Yeah. He was my recruiter. I was like, yeah, sure, let's do this.
Let's do this.
More to that story as far as how all that worked out, but going all the way back from, I was born in Germany, and bouncing back and forth from Germany to Fort Knox, Kentucky, and growing up and being able to go to where my dad worked at. It was a place called Schedule Hall, which is where he was at. He was an instructor for tanks there. Yeah. And to be able to go and crawl around on tanks and see everything, it was a real interesting way for me to become a boy, or try to figure out, okay, what's all that about, and to see all the guys and gals walk around and to see how people would move out of their way, and it was just something that you really couldn't put your finger on what was going on or what was it, but you knew there was something to it. And seeing my dad give up hours and hours and hours of his time to go out to go to work, duty, field, all that, it instilled that sacrifice for everybody else inside of me way before I even realized it. Yeah. It put the kind of stamp on it that, that's what I want to do. When it comes my time, I want to go serve for multiple different reasons, but the main one was to go do something bigger than myself. All the way back to remembering my grandfather, who was in the Korean War, to many other people in my family that served. So,
did you have conversations with your grandfather about his service?
Not early on. It wasn't until after I actually went into the Marine Corps, and I knew he served in the Army, but I really never dug down deep or anything. He was a radio operator. And it wasn't until I came back from my first deployment to Iraq in late 2003, or early 2004, excuse me, that I started having those conversations with him and asking, and he started saying very similar things to me that I was like, man, even back then, I can recognize that. And even after I had the chance to go to Korea and walk around that area and have that conversation with them afterwards, and just kind of be in awe of how all those guys, the guys that chose on reservoir guys, and having been there during a very cold time, I was just in awe of what they went through. Day to day, and not saying anybody else did anything less or more, but just that one in particular, drew some things out that I was able to talk with them about and relate to, and it even brought conversations in with my dad of things that he had done and experienced.
It's crazy to come from a family of people who have served in the military. I don't consider myself to have come from a military family, although my grandfather served in World War II. And I remember as a little kid asking him some questions about that. He told me he drove a fuel truck for Patton's tanks. That's what he told me. He was in Europe, and that was all he ever really said about it. I remember as a teenager, it's the funniest thing, but there was a French couple who were visiting the United States. And my grandfather had met this man when this man was a French soldier, and they were both in Europe in World War II. and they loosely kept in touch, I guess, for whatever that was, 60 years. And then he came and visited. But so I didn't feel really connected to my grandfather. But I remember as I got started in the the Marine Corps, and I was commissioned. He was just so proud of the service. My uncles, two of my uncles served in the military as well in the 70s, and again, I wasn't close to them, and talking about the military or that. But not too long ago, my uncle told my dad, "There's only two of us left in the family that have served," and it's really interesting to have that connection point with people in your own family.
Yeah, it is, and the interesting thing for me was to really start finding out how many other people in my family had served as well, because there were ones that I was close with. I'd got to be around my grandfather quite a bit. He lived, either he was living in Illinois. They moved down to Arkansas, where they're at now, but we still visit and get to hang out with them and grow up with them a little bit. But then to start to see these other people that were in my family, and I guess he would be considered my great uncle. He was a Marine officer, and talking to my dad about him and seeing the type of guy he was. And my dad was telling me a story about how he was like the quintessential Marine officer.
You showed me a picture of him a little while ago.
I believe so, yeah. And he would go to the beach, and he would be like in Marine officer civilian attire, like full slacks, khaki slacks with the
they
braided
beat that
belt.
into you when you're at officer candidate school.
And apparently it was really bad.
I have a hard time not wearing a braided belt when I go out.
Apparently it was really bad back then, but just the discipline that he had, and you could see in the photos, and just speaking with some of family members afterwards, it just brought out like stuff that I had no clue about. But it was based off of pride of that service, and me recognizing what that pride of service was, and to be like, wow, I had no clue. And then you kind of go and start researching it, and it kind of blew me away for a second, because we take so much for granted, or we just don't notice things, and things become mundane. So you don't know until you ask a question.
How does your dad feel about your service? Is that something you guys have talked about?
Oh yeah, we have. I can only assume that he's proud of me. I had my ups and downs during my service, and they were not a direct witness of it, but they knew things were going on, and they recognized things. When I came home, 03, 04, and to now, to be able to watch my path and my growth, and to go through some of the stuff with me. He constantly tells me, proud of you. You're doing such a great job. They were able to go to one of our program graduations in Ohio for the very first time.
Just a month ago or something. Not too long ago.
September. September. Okay. Yeah. So my mom, my dad, my sister, and my niece, they all drove up to Ohio, and they were there for the graduation.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It was awesome. For them to be able to witness that part of my journey, and it was great to share that with them. But it's definitely brought different types of conversations out with my dad and I. Even my mom. My mom works on Fort Knox and deals with soldiers and people all day long. And it's funny, the things she complains to me about are things I complain about soldiers. That they're soldiers.
They're soldiers. That's the problem. That's the real challenge.
But Marines are there too. Not as much, because they moved the tank school out of there. But it's funny how in one way, shape, or another, the military life culture easily connects people, whether they realize it or not.
It's a crazy thing. I have talked before about a book that I received as a kid. My dad gave it to me. I was 10 or 11 years old, and it was these stories. They're written to young boys, so they're very simple, but they're stories of these heroes of World War II, guys who did stuff, and then eventually they were awarded the Congressional Medal of Valor. I remember reading that and thinking, man, I could be a part of that. But when I think about Veterans Day, in a sense, I think about things like that, those who have gone before us, and there's this this unbroken line of men and women who have served throughout the course of our nation's history. And really the reasons we're free today are because of those who've gone before us. And in a lot of ways, I think that motivates a new generation of folks forward.
Absolutely.
Talking now, it's so strange to go out and speak and do these speaking events and meet young people who have come into the military post 9/11, and so many young people. I served in 1-5, 1st Battalion, 5th Marines. Last time I was at a church a few weeks ago, I met a young man who was deploying for the first time as a part of 1st Battalion, 5th Marines. And man, it's just crazy to see this continue on. But I'm thankful it does, and that's really the reason we're able to maintain the freedoms that we do.
Yeah, it's real neat to see kind of the birth dates. When applications come in, to see some of the birth dates, and I'm like, man, wait a minute, that was not too long ago.
Right.
But then it like shocked me. It was like, man, I'm not 18, 19 years old anymore, and I saw that with guys coming in when I was SOI instructor, School of Infantry, teaching infantry guys, and these guys would come in, and I'm like,
so young.
It was crazy that. It looked like they were getting younger and younger and younger.
You were just getting older.
Yeah, of course. Right. I was wondering why, like, big areas of the back of my head was missing hair. And I was just on Camp Pendleton yesterday, and walking around and seeing some of the Marines that were walking around. I'm like, man, like it's crazy to see just how young. Yeah. Staff NCOs walking by me that I'm like, your parents know you're in the Marine Corps right now? Like, it's crazy.
Where'd you steal that rank?
But I always really appreciated the guys, the Marines, and just service members in general who came in after 9/11, because they truly understood what they were getting into. In the sense, like they were signing up, to go fight, to be bigger than, their hometown or the job that school or whatever it was, but they were going to go do something much bigger than them, and they wanted to do it because of how much they love their country. They wanted to get revenge, whatever those reasons were, but it wasn't because
you'll get revenge motivation.
Yeah, I don't know how many times they're like, I'm going to go sock it to them,
But it's a love of country that
absolutely
causes that. You can't do that to my country, right?
I did it because it was something I wanted to do, and the other choices they seemed limited to me, but it wasn't what I was passionate about. I joined pre 9/11. I knew that going to war is a possibility, or things could happen as a possibility, but I just didn't think that quick. Within a span of 4 years or so. And going all the way back, you said that we are able to, sustain what we have today and look back and have pride in it because of those that have went before us. And, so I say it all the time, I'm so thankful for those generations, Vietnam era guys, because there's really no secret of how they were treated.
That's right.
A lot of what we have as a blessing to this day, the many other organizations that are out there, and just the great people that are around, the nation that do everything that they could possibly do to go up and thank a veteran or a service member, is because of remembering how those guys were treated, because it was like, kind of the stain between the eras, where guys were coming back and having parades, and the red carpet was literally rolled out to, these guys weren't even wearing their uniform. They were afraid to wear the uniform, just because of the resistance or the attacks that would come against them. And then it jumps forward to kind of our era where, I flew home in my service uniform, and just to surprise my parents, and 2004, after I got back from Fallujah, and it was literally like people would clear out of the way for you, and I'm just a young NCO walking down, and it was amazing to see that, but then also remember back, and to be able to take pride in that and thank those guys. You can definitely point them out when they're walking around. Usually they have the big Vietnam veteran hat on, but some don't. But you can still tell, and I think it's important to make sure that those guys and gals are shown appreciation. Otherwise, it's easy to forget. Day to day, you get wrapped up in your day, and it doesn't take that much to go up and say thank you, whether they want it, they feel they deserve it or not. But I think it's necessary.
What would you want to tell somebody, a civilian, who says or asks the question, why is Veterans Day important? What is it that you would say to that?
So that pride of country and service isn't forgotten, and making sure that they understand, the difference between kind of the two that get mixed up. There's several holidays or observation days, if you will, but Memorial Day and Veterans Day, they're similar, but they're drastically different. To make sure that they understand that Veterans Day is that time to go up and you see somebody that serves, has served. It doesn't matter what era, if they served in combat or not, and just simply say thank you, because it's kind of that circle to where it reminds them that they are doing something bigger than themselves. That it reminds them that it wasn't for nothing. Like their service wasn't in vain. Right. I don't know too many people that went into the military to really gain a lot of notoriety and definitely not any fame and fortune, because that's just not going to happen. Right. But they go into it because they want to do something bigger than themselves, and not many of them want that attaboy. But it feels good to be recognized. Yeah. And simple thank you. It's awkward for us on the veteran side. Right. But it's better that they walk away feeling awkward than kind of let down, that they feel like their nation and the people don't care about them or appreciate them. Yeah. I think if we forget that generations of people have gone before us and fought our wars in places that most of us would never go, if we forget that there were people who did that to preserve the freedoms that we have, we start to take our freedom for granted. And I think in a lot of ways, if we're honest, culturally, that's what's happened in the United States. We have freedom. I saw on social media the other day, someone was talking about how things are so good in the United States right now. We have economic prosperity and all these opportunities and advantages that now we make up things to be mad about. Yeah. And we spend our days making up stuff to be upset about because other people have gone before us for generations and made it possible for us to enjoy the lives that we have. And if we don't pause to remember that, we start to take it for granted. I was born into this, and this is just how it is. In so many countries, this is not how it is. Yeah, that's having seen kind of the worst of the worst and been in some of those places, it's easy for me to truly appreciate what we have here. Yeah. And even in my own self, like it's very easy also to become selfish and kind of fall victim to it, just because of how much we have here. And I mean, there's the quotes of we throw away more food than most people can sustain, that could feed villages and stuff. And that just goes to show how much freedom we truly have. And, freedom doesn't mean that everything is fair and everybody gets the, equal piece of the pie and all that. But, that's the whole thing, though, is that you have the opportunity to pretty much do whatever you want here, within parameters, obviously. Where I know plenty of other places that's not even a possibility, to even speak your mind on how you feel that day is against the law. Yeah. You can be thrown into a dungeon somewhere and forgotten about. My kids were asking me that question about why is the Bible restricted and against the law in certain countries, and having to walk them through that and being able to walk them through that it was a real kind of enlightening moment for me, because I understand it. I know what that means, and I can easily lose track and assume that everybody else does as well. Right. But it was a time. That was a great time for me to educate my two kids on those things, and for that they can recognize, what they actually have. And when my son says, this is not fair, and I have to do everything in the house and this, that, and the other, I'm like, whoa, Turbo, pull down. And I have to bring him back to reality. And when he doesn't get 2 hours of Fortnite playing and only one.
Right.
Let me explain some things.
Yeah.
Not the, I went to school, walked to school barefoot, up hills both ways kind of thing, but bringing them back to reality so they can appreciate what we have. And again, that appreciation will instill the pride and responsibility in them so they can go forward. And if they want to serve in the military, I have a long conversation about that.
Sure.
And I want to make sure that they're in the right path, but I'm going to support them just like my parents supported me, and just make sure that they're going forward and doing something bigger than themselves.
So that's the other half of this, I think. I think Veterans Day in part is looking back and being thankful for what we have and thankful for those who have gone before us. I think a day like this can also give us hope going forward. Mm-hmm. And why is it that we have hope for freedom in America, and why do we have hope for our future? And so much is in turmoil, and we're in a very tumultuous time in our country right now. One of the reasons I have hope is because I've served with 17 and 18-year-old young people who have gone and fought our nation's battles, our nation's wars, to keep us safe. And when you look at young people, and young people get a bad rap, sometimes it's deserved, I guess, but they get a bad rap. We look at young people, the generation coming up behind us, and we think they can't do this. They're all living in their parents' basement. They're, whatever we say about them. But the reality is there are a lot of teenage, adults, I guess, teenage adults, 17, 18, 19-year-old young people who are doing the hard things and really standing in the gap. And so we look back and we're thankful for what has happened, but we can look at those who are serving now and think, and this is the reason we can have hope going forward. But if we don't stop and show appreciation for those who have done it, we cannot expect a new generation to think it's worth investing their own lives in.
No, it's because it easily carries over to that person that's the recruiter.
Yeah, right.
That guy and gal that's out there as a recruiter running the streets trying to bring people in. If we simply just look at the military service or law enforcement, first responder stuff and everything is just another job, that's what it becomes. It just becomes another job. And not saying that it's better than anything or anything,
sure, of course,
or another one. But you have to show like the reason behind it, the purpose behind it. So, the person will go into it with the right mindset and the willingness to sacrifice pretty much everything. Because let's face it, you pretty much hand everything over to the government and say, okay, I'm yours now.
Right.
Like, here you go.
Right.
Oh, you want me to go over here? Okay. You want me to run back over here? Okay. And it's at a drop of the hat. So, having somebody to really go in there with the right mindset is crucial. Otherwise, you get the guys that truly don't want to be there, and they thought this was going to be easy way, or
maybe they shouldn't be there. Right.
They joke, "Oh, I got on the wrong bus." If you're going in the Marine Corps, you know exactly what bus you're going on because they start real early.
Yeah. It's the big white one.
But it goes all the way back, and seeing the Marine recruiter walk around at my high school and just watch him walk through the high school. Yeah. The same, all the other recruiters did the same thing, but I just remember seeing him go through and hearing other people, Kevin Schroeder talks about how he's seen the guy and he goes up to him and he's like, how can I get that thing? Guy asks you, how old are you? But there's a reason why that happened. And if we aren't remembering the guys and gals that were in the past, we're going to lose that.
Yep.
And that pride of service and belonging, it goes away with it, and then it just becomes another 9-to-5 job, or the idea of that, and we got to make sure that we take care of that. And it's not. I don't think it's the civilian society population's job to do that. I think it's our job as veterans to make sure we don't lose that we don't lose sight of that, and that we can't blame society for not knowing it or not recognizing Veterans Day, Memorial Day, or anything like that if we aren't doing it ourselves, and if we aren't setting the example for them and stepping forward and showing that example. And we can't get mad at that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Veterans Day is a wonderful time for us to remember who's gone before us, to be thankful for the freedom that we have, to really appreciate the freedom that we have. If you have kids, sit them down and talk about that. Spend a few minutes doing that. It's one of the reasons I appreciate our new partner, Valorous TV. They stream shows that talk about this, and we need to get back to some of that and really understand who has gone before us and what they've done, and then have hope because of those who are coming along that are continuing to carry the banner forward. And if you'll do that, I think it'll be a great weekend and a great opportunity for you. I hope you have a great Veterans Day, and really don't just celebrate the time off, but take the time to remember and find a veteran, thank them for their service, and then instill in those around you how important and how valuable that service is. Thank you for watching. Again, go check out our pledge campaign, mightyoaksprograms.org/pledge, and you'll see more about that on social media. If you are listening to this and not watching, take some time to go over to YouTube. You can hit subscribe there, hit the notification bell. That will let you know when new episodes and new content comes online, and we'd love to visit with you again. Thank you.